In this presentation, you're going to learn about the 5 nonfiction text structures: listing, sequencing, compare contrast, cause and effect, and problem solution. The first thing you want to do is set up your notebook. You're going to create a new assignment in Curiosity, and the assignment is called Text Structures. You're going to want to glue down your flappable, turning it sideways, writing your answers on and under the flap. This is what it should look like. So if you can see in the first slide, you can see that I wrote down some things, definitions and sample text. And then on the second part of it, you can see it says graphic organizers, signal words, and tips. And that's how you're going to be taking your notes. So previously we learned about text features, and text features are the tools to navigate a nonfiction text. And there were 9 different features that we explored. We're going to be looking at the organization of the content in the text, and we're going to be looking at the 5 structures. Sometimes when you're figuring out the text structure, it's kind of hard. So these 3 important tips will help you figure out what text structure you're reading. First of all, what's the author's purpose? Are they trying to show you how things are similar or different? Are they trying to show you how one event caused something else to happen? Are they trying to identify main ideas? Also, look at the transition or signal words and see how they're showing you how it moves from one idea to the next. And your third tip is, if you were taking notes, what information would be important to write down, and how would you remember that information? So the first text structure that you're going to write down for the definition is listing. Citing evidence about a main idea by describing, explaining, or giving examples of the topic's unique features. For example, if I asked you to list 3 things a person must do to play the violin, you could explain that you need to have a bow, music, and music lessons. If I asked you to list the denotative features of a cockroach, you could tell me that it's black or brown, nocturnal, and spends most of its time near water. Next, you want to figure out the transition words. Here are 8 possible words that could be for listing. Choose several of them to write down. Notice as you go through the slides, you might see that some of these transitions will also be used for other text structures. Also, notice some of the graphic organizers you can use. For example, the first one kind of looks like a sun, a little wheel map, and you can list the details around a topic. You could also use a web map, for example, the one that I showed underneath. These are just 2 graphic organizers you can use if you're looking at listing. So in the real world, you use this text structure when you're writing grocery lists, which could be done as bullets. You could be looking at rules for if you were joining a gym. Or if you're looking at travel brochures, it could be listing details on the brochure. So decide whether or not it's listing. Ask yourself, is it stating a main idea and supporting details? Is it describing the characteristics or features of a topic? And is the primary purpose of the text to describe? Your second text structure is called sequencing, and the definition is showing the steps needed to complete a process. This is very similar to chronological order. So if I asked you, what is the last major event in the 100 Years' War, you would be giving me a sequence of all the events and battles that were fought during this time. If I asked you to explain how a mother should change a diaper, you would be giving me a list of things to do, and the order is important. So if you notice some of the transition words, I gave you 8 more examples: finally, once, before, at that time. All of these have to deal with time. If you look to the right of these words, here are some graphic organizers that you might use. For example, you might have a bulleted or numbered list. You might have some type of sequence map. You could have step-by-step directions, or even a timeline. Sometimes sequencing can be a little bit confusing, so ask yourself, is it showing you steps to complete a task like brushing your teeth? Do you see it referring to dates, numbers, or events? Is it showing you what happened at a certain time? Does the order or time matter? And is it trying to organize ideas into a logical pattern? If it is, it's probably sequence. In the real world, you're going to see this text structure in recipes, directions, narratives, instruction manuals. With recipes, you'll see that also list ingredients, but the most important part of a recipe are the directions, and you have to follow the directions in a particular order, which is why that would be an example of sequencing. The next one is compare and contrast. Compare and contrast is a text structure that points out likenesses to compare and differences to contrast among facts, people, events, and ideas. So if I asked you to compare the PlayStation and show me how it's different from the Xbox, you would show me ways that they are different. If I asked you to compare and contrast a restaurant buffet and a school cafeteria, you would be showing me how those things were similar or different. Notice some of the words under the tools, like, contrary, but or yet, instead, on the other hand. These are all transition words. Notice the graphic organizers could be a Venn diagram, it could be a T-chart, or even a bubble map of sorts. And you'll often see this in product reviews. So if you're learning about maybe the iPhone, you might see how it's compared or contrast to other telephones. If you're looking at a movie or a book review, you'll see how it's similar or different to other similar products. To help you figure out if it's compare and contrast, ask yourself, are there two topics being compared or contrasted? And is this text helping you make a decision about two ideas or more? Cause and effect is the next text structure, and it's going to explain the reason an event happens, which is the cause that'll answer the question why something happened, and its result, which is going to be called the effect, and this is going to say how something happened. So what happens when someone steals? And if Jason saves 10% of his paycheck, how would this benefit him? Some of the words that you can signal knowing that it's cause and effect would be due to, because of, if then, therefore, effects, or accordingly. And if you look on the right, some of the graphic organizers just could be a web map or even a T-chart. In the real world, you're going to see cause and effect in troubleshooting guides. You're going to see it in persuasive arguments. You'll see it in research papers and also public service announcements. To find out if it's cause and effect, which can be tricky, ask yourself, is it telling you the reason something happened and then what happened because of it? And if it did, it's a cause and effect. Is it telling you the solution to a problem? If it is, it's not cause and effect. It's actually problem solution, which is what we're going to talk about next. But ask yourself, is the purpose to allow you to be aware of reasons something happens and consequences? The last text structure is called problem solution, and it's going to develop a dilemma and offer ways to resolve it. For example, my iPhone keeps shutting off when I try to play my Singing Monsters. What should I do? Or, global warming is destroying animal habitats. How can scientists help? When you're looking at problem solution, look for the following transition words: dilemma, problem, leads to, as a result, concludes, proposes. Notice that as a result, that also could be cause and effect, so you have to use some of your clues. For graphic organizers, you could use T-charts or even web maps. In the real world, you're going to see problem solution and problem shooting guides, ads, commercials, or even infomercials. You're going to see it in speeches and also in political campaigns. To find out if it's problem solution, ask yourself, what's the issue at hand? Is it suggesting ways to get involved in finding a solution? And is it brainstorming and evaluating ideas? If it is, it's probably problem solution. Next, look at the worksheet that you were given. At the top, there's a paragraph about golden eagles. What I would like you to do is read through that paragraph and decide what each sentence is an example of. Put the letter on the line. You're only going to use your answer one time. As you're reading, highlight any transition words that would help you. Then, underneath, there are some study island passages. You're going to do the same exact thing where you're going to read the passage and you're going to figure out what text structure is an example of. You will only use your answer once. Highlight your transitions. And last, you've successfully learned about the text structures. I want you to think about which text structure do you think is easiest to identify and why? And which text structure do you think is going to be more difficult to identify and why?